I can hold coffee cups now, you guys. I couldn't last week. I was drinking from straws. You can still kind of see the tops of my fingers still have weird dots on them.
How are your hands?
Well, my hands are healed. I mean, it's still like you can see that. That's
praise
still,
him, Jesus.
You know, quite sore. Where it.
I like how
pink.
it looks like.
Stigmata.
I like how it looks like on the right you've got a healing wound,
syndrome.
and on the left you were just being messy with some chocolate cookies.
Yeah, I've just been eating Oreos. No, there's just bits still there, but like the pink bits really hurt. Like that's very tender.
I want to put a pause in that.
But I don't have to wear bandages anymore.
Beat me to it.
Is the rest of your body made whole by our Lord and Savior?
My knee is very bad, and my arms. I feel like, I think it was you who said it last week, Troy, like I'm old. Like pulling pants on, very difficult. It is extremely painful. Like just these parts, like my tendons, just not good. Lifting milk, still difficult, too heavy. It's just, I'm still pretty useless, but you know, I don't have to wear bandages.
Lifting milk, is that like the metric of weight?
I lift a lot of milk as an Australian.
It's like,
we drink
hey,
a lot
look,
of tea.
Foreign countries, they measure things in stones.
I was gonna go with the stones. Yeah,
I'm with you. I'm with you, my friend.
I guess that's the heaviest. I guess that's the heaviest thing that you're lifting on a regular basis.
Pretty much. Like it's difficult
a stone or a milk?
It's still kind of difficult to open a bottle of water, but for the most part, I'm good.
Is delivery milk a thing in Australia?
Oh well, not like it is in
delivery
Canada.
milk?
Not like how they get the bags.
Oh, wait,
Bags? Who delivers milk in a bag?
Canada. You
Like
know
a paper
about
sack.
Hey, friend, have you got your bag of milk yet? Oh, no, because, of
No.
course, it's Aardvark Day. Oh, that's our favorite national holiday that we got there.
It
There's
is a
only
real
one
thing.
road
They
in
get
Canada.
they get milk delivered in bags in Canada. That's an I promise you, this is a
I
thing.
feel like that's a euphemism. That's a euphemism.
Troy, I feel like you should know this. I feel like this is a Troy Baker fact. It has this written all over it. Maybe Mike can back
I don't
me up.
focus on our neighbor to the north. I focus on my neighbor to the far east. Or west, if you want to keep going that way.
Everything's east if you go far enough. Mike, I need help. Mike, you back?
You are super on brand. What is going on? Look at that grumpy face.
Mike, do you know about the Canadian milk bag thing?
No. Catch
Known
me
as
up.
Nickelback?
My computer, by the way, just died. I have no idea what you're talking about. But
Oh my
computer just
god.
killed itself.
The world does not want us to make this podcast today.
Do you know?
It never crashes.
So
That's how-
I've been
Canadians
recording all of this.
No, they get milk delivered in bags, is what I'm
Do you know the
telling this fine
Canadian
gentleman,
milk bag?
and they don't believe me, but it is true.
Look at this bloody bliff. Wasn't that
Do we
Nickelback?
just maybe not talk about anything this episode and just throw it in the trash?
gonna say,
Like, is that what
I
we
love
should
our-
do?
I really love our video game podcast so much right now.
It's great, right?
Oh yeah, by the way, I loaded up Hitman, and I just love how fast the PS5 loads games. Go ahead.
Listen, I was gonna say, while
Loads faster than bags of milk get delivered, that's for sure.
especially
only
in
by
Canada
half
on
a
that one
stone.
road. For fuck's sake. I did want to talk about game demos this week, but I also
don't.
am currently obsessed with Hitman.
All
I
right, okay,
can't
I
stop
haven't-
thinking about Hitman.
Okay, I wanted to start playing it last night.
Bear with me. Whoa, I gotta start recording.
Oh my Jesus.
Okay, I've started recording.
I've recorded
Back.
for you, Mike. You're fine.
Thank you. Hey.
I wanted to play this game last night. I got a little bit of time. I was like, "Hey, are you good?" She's like, Pam was like, "Yeah, I'm good." It's like, "Traveler, you good?" And he was like, "Hey, man, I'm in a great place
Hey, I'm
right
doing
now." I
good,
was like,
dude. Thanks for asking, man.
Good, yeah.
As he
Bro,
swirls his
it's
like
all
little
good.
glass of gin.
Boysenberry. I'm gonna go play some games. I was like, cool. And Fate went, no, you're not. I was like, okay, why not? It was like, oh, because it's something stupid. Like what? I was like, did you push this button? It's like, no, I didn't push that button. I was like, well, we think you pushed that button. Why don't you go look at YouTube videos for 30 minutes and then never play a game?
You broke something.
What?
No, I didn't. It was just like, oh, sorry, you were serious about that. You
it's
just
an
need to
internal
turn us
process.
on and turn us off again. It's that South Park thing where the internet goes down. All you have to do is unplug it and plug it back in. It's literally just like nobody can keep up with the PS5. It's just dumb. It was just, it's just stupid. That's my
What happened?
least
What was the actual problem?
audio. Couldn't get audio. No audio
Oh.
Strange.
Because of a button?
because of a button. Not even because of a button. They were like, oh no, we're just joking about that.
That's very
Put your
odd.
headphones back on. Yeah, you got
Is
it.
is Troy's description of what happened to him confusing the hell out of anyone else? Like,
Yeah,
I'm
he's
really
explaining it
struggling.
very
Is my brain
simply.
broken?
Yes.
Okay,
I
cool.
don't-
Okay, I'm just checking.
Look, I have
I
worked
can't follow.
very hard on
Yeah.
on my. I used to have real anger issues, and because I couldn't fight physically, I would fight verbally, and I would yell. That was the model that was given to me, is to like raise my voice. I was like, I can't do that. So I have worked really, really hard on my level of patience, and Traveler's actually been really, really helpful for that, because a child naturally just pushes your boundaries of patience. And so he's taught me how to be very patient. I still struggle too much with the if like a light switch goes, here's what I do. My function is this. You push this button and this happens. Like an if then, right? That heuristic, if that is broken inexplicably, I'm not in a good. I'm not.
You
in a
mean
good
like
space.
you had one job? Anger
Technology
management.
not
Yes.
working is infuriating.
Inexplicably though? That's the thing. Where you're like, well, did you pour water on your computer? I was like, yeah. Like, then that's probably. I was like, dude, that's my bad. I
for
will
sure.
have more patience with like a stupid decision that results in a failure or malfunction, rather than just like.
No, of course.
Definitely
That's-
never get into programming.
Never use a
Definitely never get into
printer.
programming.
Really?
Ever.
That to me, that
All
doesn't make any
printers are
sense.
cursed.
Programming is like 90, well, obviously by definition, right? 99% of the time when you're coding stuff, it doesn't work. And
Yeah.
it doesn't make sense. I'm literally working on spoilers. I'm working on like an AI I'm programming at the moment for a thing. And it will...
Watch it with the
can
spoilers.
It can
Please
solve
fire
a
act.
problem. Basically, there's a big complex thing in the game that can work out its solution to that problem. All but about 1% of the time where it gives up halfway through. And I have no idea why. And I can make it go through the steps of solving the problem from that halfway point. But yeah, when you're coding, it's you're intentionally making broken things and then fixing them until they work. That's how
Man,
most coding works.
I've never looked at it that way, because I would think it's like, oh, I could show you exactly why this line of code is wrong. Like it seems to me like it would be so.
I would imagine that's only true if it's a very simple program. Like
I
once
bet,
you
I
have,
bet there's. I think probably as smarter programmers as well, right? Without being like faux modest. Like definitely there's a tier of programmer who probably can read code that way. But no, most programming is problem solving.
Is faux modest when you have a fear of missing out, of being humble?
FOMODO, yeah.
Yeah, it's something that I think I would find extremely frustrating, because things not working for no reason is infuriating. It's like my mum doesn't have a
Yeah.
temper. We're very similar in a lot of ways, but the one thing that will make my mum just go into a fit of rage is tech not working and not knowing why.
Yeah.
It's like you have to leave her alone. You have to be like, I understand that the internet is out and I'm very sorry about that.
Is she fairly tech savvy?
No. Remember the episode where my parents are fucking useless and they have to text me what a PDF is? No.
Yeah.
Not
but I mean,
tech
in their
savvy at all.
defense,
There was one
What
time
is
where
a
like
PDF? What is a
like
PDF?
Connect stopped working and I had to leave my Connect in Australia when I moved to the US, because it was the only way that they knew how to use smart apps, was if they could say the words
Technically, the
to my
Kinect
Connect.
never actually worked in the first place, so it was fine. Like it was always
Still an apologist.
kinda
I
halfway
disagree.
towards not working.
I think it's
Really?
great.
Okay.
Yeah, I really loved Connect.
I still remember the Connect room we had at my old work, because you legally you could only have the Connect in a locked office with restricted access. So in this whole game studio, it was just this one. Yeah, it was
like a
when
Hitman
they were-
level.
when they were working on it. It was, but it was really
Ah.
restricted. And there was like keypads. It was like, and for like the first week, everyone was like, "What's in the room? What's in the room that's so protected?" And everyone who was working on it was like, "Can't say NDA." And then second, we all realized it was Connect. That was interesting.
When I got Red Dead Redemption 2 early, the NDA was like, you must have all windows in your apartment closed. You must have it in a locked box inside of a locked room. It's like, bitch, I live in a studio. I ain't got a lockbox, but I will
have
do
to have a,
my best.
you have to have a member of the what's the like Israeli CIA that's
It has
super
to sit
hardcore.
outside your door. Yeah,
It's like
Mossad?
the Mossad. You have to have a Mossad agent on 24/7. Thank you.
I did shut all my windows because there's a neighbor that is directly across from my windows, and I was like, it would suck if Red Dead 2 gameplay got leaked because they shot footage through their window into my window
over
and somehow
your
caught my
shoulder.
TV somehow. Yeah, it'd be terrible.
I think this is public knowledge, and if it's not, we're gonna
Score.
It's gonna be.
bleep
Let's
the
do
hell
it.
out of
Let's
this.
do it. Yeah.
Do you remember the Uncharted heist?
You mean like playing the game?
No.
I remember that some code got out, right? Was it
No.
code got out? No.
Shall I
Or
Google
something
this
else?
to see if
There
this
was
is a
a
thing that
full-
exists?
You should
on-
check if this is.
Let me
a
check
thing
that
that's
this is public.
Yeah.
Yeah, if not, we'll get rid of all
Leave it
this.
out.
This will be everyone will be like, and that's the craziest thing I've ever heard of. That's when we come back or whatever. But it happened
Uncharted
at Dover.
4 shipment hijacked in transit. Okay.
Bingo.
Oh, okay, cool.
It happened in Dover, so they're coming over from France where they shipped.
Bluebells.
Eh?
Doesn't matter. Bluebells over the White Cliffs of Dover. It doesn't matter. I'm sorry. I apologize for throwing.
Good for
You're
you.
straight. I apologize.
Please break into song.
I'm so sorry. Carry on.
The transit was coming over from France into Dover, and were met with like armored trucks, and they literally hijacked the entire shipment and stole the entire shipment for Uncharted for the UK.
That's some Fast and Furious movies 1 through 3 shit right there.
It is.
Do the numbers on that. Like you get it a week early, I think it was, or maybe even more. The street value of that, even if it's just £100 per, you have millions of dollars worth of product.
Damn.
And it was a big deal. We were at the press junket in Rome when that whole thing broke, and they had finally locked it down. They're like, "Yeah, we got all those guys, and it's not good." But I was like,
They
thought
caught
about that. They caught him. It was not good.
I guess
trophies. They got the trophies. That's what
the eBay listing for 10,000 copies of Uncharted 4 the next day was not a good move on their part.
They found one in a game studio, or in a game store. But the other thing is, the second that you put that into a PS4, pings.
It did say
so
this
they're
article
able
says they were
to-
found in the UK, and this seems really nice. Shuhei's statement is basically just warning people about spoilers. He said, as with most Naughty Dog
Don't
games,
you just love him?
I know.
That's very Shuhei.
As with most Naughty
Shuhei's
Dog
the
games,
loveliest
the
person on the
unfolding
planet.
story is such an integral part of the experience, and for this reason, we wanted to warn you to be aware of the potential spoilers to be posted by people with access to stolen copies of the game. It's just like a very nice thing to say, not being like there was a goddamn heist. He's like, I hope you all enjoy it. Please don't have it spoiled for you.
That's the man. That's who
Japanese,
Shuhei
too.
is. Yeah.
It's like
lovely, but-
we're not going to complain publicly.
Yeah.
Because what happened to those people? Oh no, don't worry about those people. You ever see
Don't
Raiders of
worry
the Lost
about
Ark, that last frame where they're pushing the box? It's like that's what those people are. Top
Yeah,
people.
exactly.
That's nuts. That I wonder how orchestrated it was.
Very.
Yeah, I mean, if they had all the vehicles, it would be
Like they
there's a
knew what they were
degree of-
stealing. They weren't just going for a truck. They were going for
No,
the
they knew
Uncharted
exactly what they were stealing.
Wow.
They knew how to steal. They knew the trade. They knew everything about it.
truck. Wow.
And they've been
'Cause
tracking it.
you got to have a plan to sell the stuff as well, right? So you got to pre-plan the whole.
That's the
not
thing
to
that strikes
sound
me
too
as-
much like someone who's thought about this, but like, yeah.
Which to
Indeed.
anyone who might be listening, thinking
In
of some
defense.
nefarious plans,
We
those
are
guys,
noticing, Mike.
Yeah, they planned that and executed it well, and it still failed. So don't try.
Yeah, maybe
It's kind
don't
of like
attempt
when you
to
hear
heist.
about. It's like when
Don't
you
steal
hear about
things, guys.
these like when someone steals like an original, Da Vinci or Van Gogh or one of those kinds of things. Where it's always the same thing of like, how on earth do you offload that?
Black market.
That's what always trips them up. That's always the point of failure in all of these plans.
It's just
We got robbed
astonishing
when I was
that
at IGN. The guy came into the building during the day, waited on the rooftop at night, and then came back down and robbed IGN.
that's
And
like
he
the Denzel
stole-
Washington. What was
Because we
That's
that?
couldn't figure out how he
Inside
got in.
Inside
That building's so
Man,
locked
yeah.
down at night that
Live
we were
on.
like, how on earth
Spoilers.
he's done that? And they figured out that it's that he went up earlier and then waited up there and then came back down, and I guess nobody checks the roof. But he stole a bunch of laptops. Like, didn't get any information. They're all locked. It's totally fine. But I remember thinking, like, we had so much more expensive equipment than laptops, like a soundboard.
Also, it was
5K.
super easy back in the day to wander into IGN. Like you could just walk in off. I remember
It
IGN
did get
had
better,
the weakest
like even
security.
while I was there. But yeah,
Oh, really?
you could,
Okay,
you
fair
could kind of just go up there. But
I remember back in the day just wandering in with a takeaway pizza. It was great.
Yeah, but
It's
you're
genuinely
Mike
true.
Bithell, so this
I
is just
wasn't
some
like
random
Biffle back
thief.
then.
He stole the laptops because they're easy to resell. That's it. It's just you can resell a
Hmm.
laptop super easily. There's so much more valuable stuff in there. We had tons of consoles, but even consoles have serial numbers. Like it's so much easier to track down Not that laptops don't, but to track down anything that is actually of higher value. I feel like if you were to steal a Da Vinci, you'd just get caught. Like it's just
No, have you ever seen Entrapment? The late great Sir Sean Connery
no.
and the still great Catherine Zeta-Jones. That talk about how there's buyers for those things, and it's like, no, we're gonna buy that on the black market, and no one's ever gonna come. It's like, that's the Da Vinci that was stolen. I have it in my house.
Wow.
And
But you
no
need the
one will-
connections, right? If you're going to do that, that's the thing. Is there's this whole like class structure amongst those people because you have to have the connection.
You just never tell anyone. You'd have to even if someone came to your house and saw that painting, like you'd have to want it so bad just for yourself to never let anyone
But that's
know
the
about
thing.
it.
But that's
It's
the
not.
part.
It's not
that,
art appreciators. It's. I got that. I stole it.
Yeah.
There's an episode of Next Generation of a guy like that, and his heist is to steal data because he has
right.
The
he
ship's
has
commander.
yeah, well, because he has.
Is
he's
it
the
like
world-
literally
he's the
data
most-
himself?
Literally to steal data, yeah.
Yeah, because
Oh, I
data.
thought you meant. I was making a joke.
Yeah.
And you're serious.
Because he's one of a well,
I
he's
feel
not,
like
he's
we're in
one
the
of
writers'
three,
room,
but
when
yeah.
this idea was pitched too.
no, guys, I really mean it. Steal data.
No, it's a great idea.
No, yeah, the idea is that Data is like the most perfect android ever
I remember
made,
that episode.
and this guy just wants him for his collection.
Yeah.
You know, and he also has like Van Gogh, and he's like this intergalactic, sort of black market collector.
Wow.
This is a Norbian Flockbard. You don't got. You've get
So
those
and
anywhere.
that's
Bunch
data.
of that, yeah. It's a bunch of that.
Sort of a
yeah.
man. That's
Lot of
messed
that.
up.
It always is.
But again, I keep being led to almost talking about Hitman and then not. So Hitman 3 came out, got very good review scores, and I have, well, actually not played it. I've watched it be played because I haven't been able to play video games. I think today I'm going to be able to. But I was recently playing Hitman 1 and 2. Like it's not like I hadn't already played it, but I dropped off because they were episodic and used to release maps bit by bit, so I had only played like 1 or 2 and not played more than that. Man, they're good. They're all so
I haven't
good.
played this new since they rebooted it though. I haven't played it. So like, I was like, this isn't Hitman 3. I was like, it's Hitman like 7.
It's
like,
the third game in this current
in this
trilogy.
reboot.
Yeah.
In this trilogy, yeah.
Yeah,
And the last, presumably, if they're onto Bond now. Probably this is it.
which, it's not like I ever had any doubt that they could do Bond, but after playing the level that you tweeted about, Mike, the second level of Hitman 3, it's just, damn, it's going to be a good Bond game.
Which Troy's in. Troy plays a photographer in it. I mean, level 2 of Hitman 3. You don't. It's fine. You've not forgotten another role.
I make
you play.
jokes about
There's a
Troy
guy
being in every game all the time, and then I was like, he plays I didn't talk to the photographer. Oh, no.
No, it's just very
I'm
similar
really
to the point.
not. That's what's funny. Is like, isn't every game? I'm like, I can tell you games that more games that I'm not in than I am.
Well,
in.
yeah.
Although I will say,
Sure.
The fact that you have to make that proviso implies that you're in a lot of games. Now.
and I will
There are
say,
more than I've heard.
I watched quite a few people streaming the Pathless where they finish the game, credits start to roll, and I see all these, like, I especially loved watching the non-English speaking
I didn't know.
streamers.
I got to the credits,
Yeah.
yes, and I
Same-
literally freaked out. I was like, "Shit, that was Troy."
Yeah,
That was
it's so funny. Troy and
a
Laura
great
both,
game.
and the fact that people are like, sitting there and it's like, Troy Baker. What's
He's got me again.
He's done it again.
But seriously, guys, that is a great game. I completed that since we last spoke. It's
and I
You're both
played the
talking at the
Hunter.
same
That's
time.
what people don't know.
Oh,
It's fine.
Oh, sorry.
It's
confusing
crosstalk. It's
for
why
me.
it's what people come in for. It's
Go
fine.
ahead.
They're always in the
ahead.
comments saying we love
Go
how you
ahead.
talk over each other. They're always like,
I
"That's
hear you,
great."
right? Go ahead.
It
Keep doing
happens when
Bro,
you
thank
do something on the internet. I think that Mike, you were talking about Hitman 3 being very good. I just want to say I agree. I don't even.
No, I was talking
wanna-
about Pathless being
He
very
was
good.
complimenting
Oh, Pathless.
Pathless. How
I
dare
was
you rob us
complimenting
of
No,
this
Hitman 3 is
content?
very good though.
Blah,
You
blah,
guys.
blah, blah, blah.
Hitman 3 is also excellent. Yeah.
I still do need to play the Pathless. I'd really like to, but
This is like the Family Guy of Kermit and Ray Romano and whoever else all talking over each other on the news. They're all.
If I can say something about the Pathless, I don't know if I shared this with Austin. It is the most flawlessly beautiful, poetic, satisfying. That the gameplay is just so satisfying. It's just so simple. It was as meditative as I wanted Ghost of Tsushima to be, but by the very nature of its own function, could not. Like there was always.
someone trying to fight you. Bear shows up.
There's a bunch of stuff
Boars.
in the world, and Pathless doesn't have that. It's like
No bears.
look up on the horizon, and wherever you see red,
There is a
there's-
bear.
Shit.
There is a bear.
There's a bear, there's deer, there's all sorts of stuff. But it was so, it never got repetitive. It was just so wonderfully beautiful, and it's very
I love that it was content to be a poem rather than an epic as well. Like it was like 4 hours and we're done, and I love that about it. And I appreciate there's lots more content if you want it, but like I thought it was perfectly structured to what it was, and I thought very.
I started to go back through and play it again. First of all, I did play it on Apple TV.
Really?
Oh, okay.
You didn't mention
How's it
that
play
part.
on Apple? So are you playing that on the remote or?
No, you have to pair
You have the
my controller, my PS4 controller to it,
Oh, okay.
which it does very, very seamlessly. And I also played it on my iPhone.
I assumed you were playing it on PS5. I had
did
no
I.
idea you.
No, I did play it on PS5.
So you're lying.
You play it twice.
Yeah, I've played it. I
see.
finished it on PS5. I
Alanah doesn't
started
trust you anymore.
Troy's confused the
it
shit out of me
on-
today.
Something
I
about
started it on
structure.
Apple TV, and I also started it on iPhone because I just wanted to see how differently it played, and it.
So you play it 3
definitely-
times.
Yeah, it
I
definitely
assume there's
plays
no
better.
cross save, which Ubisoft
There's no cross save
has
between on
implemented
iPhone or
cross-platform saves, and it's still blowing my mind. You can now play something on PS4 and then play it on Xbox Series X and then play it on PC on your same save file.
I think
Please,
Supergiant,
everyone, do this.
I think
That's
Supergiant
insane.
got that up and running on Hades also.
Really?
I think so.
I started playing Hades as well.
Very good game.
It's a lot. It's a lot at once.
I
Is
suppose
that
it probably
not
is
just
in
like
the beginning,
roguelikes in
but
general? Like roguelikes in general, right? Are that kind of bombarding with information the first playthrough, and then you kind of
Hades,
Yeah,
I think,
it's
does
similar
it
to
better than
Hitman,
most.
actually. Similar to Hitman.
Similar to Hitman, yes.
Interesting. I think it's first of all, anything that Darren does, I'm a fan of, and it
Likewise.
felt like a very much of a callback to like some old Capcom games. It threw back to like some arcade. Like I love that style of game. It's just been a minute since I've played one, and I was like, oh, it's a different language. And even like graphically what's happening on screen and then mechanically what's happening, I was like, man, it's been a second since I've played a game like this before. So I understood the appeal of everyone going, fuck, I've missed. And it's not saying like this is the first game that's been out, since the 90s or whatever. It's done, there's many iterations of it, but it's done very, very well. But it was like, I'm tempted to go in and a friend of mine made a comment where I was like, I'm tempted to play God mode. He was like, well, aren't you kind of always in God mode? It's like, because you're
Lame.
bad joke.
I enjoyed it.
joke.
I enjoyed it. You got a smirk from me.
Thank you.
Let the audio listeners know that I smiled at your joke. I enjoyed
Yes.
it.
Yeah, noted.
It's kind of a charity smile, I think.
It was it
I
wasn't. It
was-
was a sincere one. It was
All
sincere.
smiles
It was
are charity.
sincere. It was sincere.
So yeah, I've been wanting to get into Hitman 3, but what's the comparison that you're drawing between?
Just that
Hitman,
Hitman, the loop of Hitman that I adore, and every single time I start a new one or come back to it, as Alanah said, because definitely with Hitman 1, where it was like episodic, and was 2 like that as well? 2 wasn't, right? 2 all came out at once.
I
feel.
think 2 all came out
Is
at
that
once.
right?
Yeah.
Other than like the DLC.
Yeah.
The great thing about Hitman is you go into an environment and it's so dense and so many overlapping mechanics and stories. You go into an environment and you're immediately overwhelmed. Every single Hitman level I start, I'm like, it's too
It's
much
impossible, I
in this level.
can't
It's
do
too
this.
complicated. It's
It's too
impossible. I
big.
can't do
They're
this.
so big.
It's so big and so confusing, and why have they messed up Hitman? And then you play it, and the great thing about Hitman, especially in the new trilogy, is they emphasize the idea of, no, you're not going to play this level once. You're going to loop through it and try different approaches. So, I took the day off work yesterday and I played just the first mission of the new Hitman, which is up this beautiful skyscraper in Dubai. And I think I must have played that level through like 5 or 6 times. And by the end, you're like Bill Murray in Groundhog Day. You're just like doing that, knowing exactly when that guy's going to come out that door, and just kind of and that process of going from being completely overwhelmed to absolute mastery
Yeah.
That's
is
good
so
design.
satisfying.
And how
It's just
quickly it
such a
can
good loop.
happen. Like, it can be an hour. Like, the Paris level of Hitman 1 is probably one of my least favorites, if I'm being honest. But that level, you're like, there is no way that I can kill these 2 people. It is just not going to happen. But then you find out that there are like 5 different ways. Okay, he's here at this point. Should I get his bodyguards get up? Is that it? But then he'll recognize me probably. And one thing that I really do like about those games is that if you're wearing a disguise, anyone who would be like your manager will recognize you. There are laws to who will recognize you and who won't. They'll be like, I don't work with that dude. That's not what he looked like. What the hell's happened to your face? So you have to figure out, okay, which of these people would know who I am? Am I going to be able to get into even this building? Because there's another one in Hitman 1, I think it's Marrakesh, where there are 2 buildings and a big open area between them, and you have to get into both of them in completely different ways. They're so fun. But I really like that Hitman 3, again, especially with that second level, basically has like this case for you to solve that technically you don't have to. That just when I was playing that, I was just like, this is the Bond game that I want. And I know that the Hitman games, like those last 3, have all been designed to be Bond-esque anyway. They were saying that they set them in places specifically that you should want to go to, like it's a Bond film. Like the settings are places that I mean, their design is beautiful. Like when I'm walking around those games, I'm always like, whoever got to design this room, like it's just, they're so pretty, but it's supposed to be, you should want to go there.
Oh.
Okay, well, I have a question then.
Yes.
So if you get, tapped to take over such a well-known or well-loved franchise, or especially one that's been iterated on for literally over 50 years, do you want that to be like, oh, it's Hitman with the Bond skin, or I would say this if you weren't here, Mike, but like the pitch for John Wick is a shooter, or it's a third-person, over-the-shoulder action adventure combination melee shooter. That's what the pitch should be. Not, it's essentially turn-based strategy. Completely different.
I think you've nailed it, Troy. I think I made a terrible mistake.
But you know what I mean? Like anybody else going in is like, well, sure, you go do that. It's like, or what you do is you flip the genre and you invoke the moniker and the world, and you show that it is. Maybe this is a good example. Maybe it's not. But whenever I wrote a song, I would always instantly hear the drums, I would hear the strings, I would hear the horns, I would hear the choir, I heard everything else. And Wayne Miller, producer that I worked with, is an incredible producer. He's like, what is that song on an acoustic guitar around the fire? That is a good song. When you have lyrics and melody, that's the song. And if you can have a great song that can be played just on piano or just on an acoustic guitar, then that's a good song. So if it requires all of those big things, it's probably not a good song. So if I hear that
I fully endorse this statement. I fully endorse this statement.
Cool.
Cool.
Yeah,
cool. I don't care.
But I think I get your question.
I'm not here to fucking impress you.
Who are you?
You know what I mean? Are people going to be going, I understand why they got the Bond gig, because this is basically Hitman, but it's James Bond.
In other words, are you hoping that
it's IO making Bond that does it for me? Like it's the studio. So it would be like, there's questions. It's like, who would you have make this? In my head, it is IO making Bond. It doesn't mean that I want it to be Hitman Bond edition. And I'm sure they'll evolve it, and they've proven that over the last 3 Hitman games, that they do take steps to evolve each one of them. They're not the same game, and they very easily could be, because Hitman's been around for so long and has had similar formulas for so. You put the poison in the drink and the guy dies. Like they could have just kept doing that, but I think that I don't doubt that they will probably have more combat for Bond is what I would expect.
I think there's 2 approaches. There's 3 approaches. One is like what I think people maybe think was going through my head with John Wick when we did do a turn-based John Wick game, which is you can just go, well, screw this, I'm going to do something completely different and original, and screw the franchise, I'm going to do whatever I think is right. And I think that's a terrible way to approach IP. I would never do that. But I do think with IP you can kind of do one of two things. You can either lean in to what the obvious answer to the problem is, which like with John Wick would be a third-person action game. With James Bond as well, I guess, a third-person action game plus driving mechanics is the obvious kind of solution, which is why there's so many of those James Bond games out there. But I think the thing that we try to do with John Wick, and what I expect, given how good I think IO are, them to do is actually to find, and this I think is a good way of adapting anything, find their angle on something that's still true to the thing, but focuses on the aspect of the thing that they find interesting. So with John Wick, I love John Wick because I love watching that level of technical choreography, and I was interested, and I thought there's a game in that. And with James Bond, and if someone's not played Hitman, you said, Troy, you've not played the new trilogy of Hitman, like Hitman is now, I think I said it was like Clockwork Theatre, right? And I said that on Twitter the other day. It's totally true. It's a play. There is a play happening on stage, and you are an actor who's gone in, and you've not been given a script. Everyone else is doing their part, and the first time you go through it, you're flailing, trying to work out what to do in that world. By the end, you're the actor who's heisting the play and choosing how to reorient the play to get what you want. That is an excellent description of how James Bond walks into a room. There's social interaction, there's manipulation, there is violence, there's action, there's all of that as well. But when I think about what James Bond does in the kind of quintessential James Bond, although never go back and read Casino Royale, that book has aged fucking terribly. I did that last year, and boy howdy, that is not a book that
it's the
likes
very first
women.
book, isn't it?
It's the first one, yeah. Casino Royale, you go back and you're like, this is probably like a horrible misogynist book for its time. It has not aged. Don't read Casino
Daniel
Royale.
Craig
The film's
said
fun.
that he thinks that like he doesn't like Bond because he's just a horrible misogynist. I think he's been vocal about
and if
that.
you read, I mean, the Casino Royale, literally the internal monologue is always referring to the Vesper character as a bitch. Like, just that's how even like when they're falling in love, there's
Really?
I love this
funny, I
bitch.
read
is
that-
if you look.
I
If
read
you
it-
look at like what Casino Royale is, and if you look at the movie, the Daniel Craig movie of it, like that is a Hitman level insofar as it's a character walking into a room and having mastery over the social and action elements of that. So yeah, I agree. I don't think they're just going to take Hitman and reskin it, but that method.
I'm
of
just
design,
hoping it's a
which is all
match
about-
3 mobile game.
Maybe it will be, but I think you can take that kind of IO approach to kind of problem solving, that kind of immersive sim at a big scale, that kind of
Their level
you know,
design.
disrupting force. Yeah, their level design, that sense of place, which has always been a big part of the Bond movies in particular. Not so much, I guess, the books, but in the movies, they were tourism. Like the Bond movies were designed on some level to be shown to a predominantly Western audience as tourism to places that those audiences probably couldn't afford to go and couldn't afford to experience.
That makes sense.
Again, it makes perfect, like this is the locations will make sense. I want to go to the Casino Royale as Bond and be given the objective of getting it's just to get to Le Chiffre, right? And be thrown open to, like, I could do that via the card game. I could take out some of his good, like there, you can start to think how the other thing that's really interesting, just forgetting Bond for a second. I love the idea of that team and that level design being applied to a game which has more verbs and more potential objectives than kill people. Like, I'm sure that obviously there'll be action, but like, and it's not even a moralistic thing, but like you're definitely starting, especially in 3 and especially in that second mission, to feel the designers hitting the constraint of, oh, it's Hitman, we have to do an assassination. Hitman 3, the second chapter, I don't want to spoil it for anyone who's not played it yet, but there is a very obvious opportunity to do a cool thing, and when you
don't have to do it.
said a case. You don't have to do it. If you choose to do it, and if you choose to do it well, it's like an hour and a half long
Yeah, I did the whole
process
thing.
of going around doing all the things. And then finding out all the different ways you can play with that information, how you can use that to
You
socially
could
influence
probably
people.
finish that level in 20 minutes if you really want to, maybe?
I mean, the Silent Assassin, like, you can get through most of the maps in a Hitman level, in a Hitman game, usually in about 10 minutes if you rail through it. Exactly, but when you're on loop 5, you start to do the Groundhog Day play, and that's amazing. But yeah, I can feel that design team is capable of doing stuff without the constraint of what people expect from a Hitman game, and I'm excited to see them.
Yeah, and without this constraint of GoldenEye, which is such an interesting thing because it's a franchise where you have one of the most beloved games of all time already.
Sure.
So
Exactly.
will it have multiplayer?
Who wants to follow that, right?
Yeah.
I have a follow-up question. Because we've seen this a lot in film where, all right, director, you've proven yourself with your own little things. Christopher Nolan did it. Rian Johnson did it. J.J. Abrams did it. There have been all of these directors who are like, now we're going to hand you the mantle of this established IP to put your thing on it, to iterate upon it as you will. Games have done the same thing. We're going to give this studio this moniker or this IP. Do you think that is the goal of a studio, is to be able to, that's when you've quote made it, is to be given is that the thing that studios should be working towards? Is
It's a
not
goal.
only it's a goal, but I'm saying like that's when you know you've made it. Is like they're gonna do, because look, I mean, like you said, I had this long pedigree, but it's like they're gonna do Bond, or I mean Lucas, coming back and doing Indiana Jones makes sense. There's a lineage to that. But whenever someone said, it's like, I want to see Naughty Dog do that game. It's like, it's not like I want to see them come up with something new, but we always, I see this tendency for a general public to go, I want to see this thing be made by that studio. Do you think that's like the apex?
The general public's job is not to come up with cool ideas. That's all of our jobs, right? Like, I don't begrudge the audience wanting more of something they know they like already. But in terms of like objectives, yeah, we just did a licensed game, and I'm not spoiling anything, I think, by saying we probably will go back and do other IP stuff at some point, because it's interesting, because you get to kind of collaborate with interesting creative people, you get to learn from stuff. As a designer as well, it's great to have that shorthand. We all know what Bond is, so that cuts out so much of the work for IO in terms of teaching you how to play the game, because you're going to play it like you're James Bond. There's going to be there's a really interesting set of cultural theming that you can lean on and kind of give you opportunity. The other thing is financial security, which honestly I don't know IO as a company, but like I know that they've struggled for years to like make the commercial case for Hitman, because it's such a brilliant game that doesn't really seem to like have phenomenal numbers. So I imagine attaching the kind of design they love to do to something which they know will have that kind of visibility and in theory do good numbers does make sense. But it's a goal. It's not. No, I would be astonished if Naughty Dog ever did a licensed game, because why would they? What do they get from that? What's the objective? What's the problem that's solving for Naughty Dog? An indie studio like mine doing a big IP, of course, yeah, there's lots of very good business reasons, and there's also opportunities to learn. The Insomniac Spider-Man thing's interesting because they arguably didn't have to do a Spider-Man game, but I bet they just really wanted to.
Would have wanted to.
I bet
Overdrive.
Yeah.
I know exactly. There's also...
they've been leaning in that direction for a while, right? So that IP made sense for the kind of game they wanted, which is also a way of doing this. This isn't just the case that IP holders will go, we want to make a game of our thing, you're a cool studio, do it. Often, I've been in the situation where I've been out, at E3 or GDC. This literally happened to me once. I was out pitching a concept for a game and talking to everyone in town about it. And someone I showed it to just said, oh, that's a perfect fit for this big franchise IP, and set up a meeting. And there was an opportunity there to take that mechanic that we had and work with an IP that fit that and make a game. It didn't come together in the end. That wasn't a thing that happened. But like, it can go that way as well, that you've got the game design and then you find the IP that matches it rather than being reactive just to the IP. And that can work out well for everyone. So
I was actually just about to float that exact scenario, because I have some good friends who are working on a game that is precisely what happened. They were working for like a year or more on a thing that was an original IP of their own. But the underlying architecture, made its way in front of certain shareholders of certain IP and said, what if this was our narrative universe, but everything, like, you just reskin what you're doing basically to our thing. And they said, okay. And they literally did that. They literally made a deal.
Which happens all the time in movies, right? The number of movies where
10
like
Cloverfield Lane.
sequels to franchises. 10 Cloverfield Lane, there's also like, what was it I was watching the other day where I was like...
Was that not originally... Was that movie like written as a standalone like bunker
that movie
thriller?
Was filmed as a standalone film.
Not supposed to be part of that
Lane
universe.
It was made.
So they did like a
separate,
pickup on the
movie.
final shot.
Yeah, they did pickups to kind of join things up. So that's one way, but it happens with screenplays, right? All the time. Like if you're a jobbing writer in LA and you've got a screenplay for like an awesome action movie that's about a heroic guy who does a cool thing in like a spy context, there's a non-zero chance that will just be picked up by a studio to be transformed into the next Men in Black or the next Mission Impossible. I think that doesn't have Mission Impossible so much anymore, but like there are definitely sequels to movies where they've taken. I mean, the best example of this would be didn't this happen with Pirates of the Caribbean?
I feel like you have to do so much rewriting though.
But on Stranger Tides, I think it's called On Stranger Tides, which is one of the Pirates of the Caribbean movies. That was a book. There's a pirate story book called On Stranger Tides. Has nothing to do with Pirates of the Caribbean. They buy the rights to the book, develop that and they roll it in because that's easier and more reliable than getting a writer to come in and invent something from whole cloth. So this happens all over the shop, like these kind of reworkings of things. And IP has value, and ensures bums on seats. Not necessarily the most creative approach. It'd be awesome if everything was original and new.
I was gonna say we're not doing
But
much.
you
for
as an
the
audience member
cynical
watching
crowd.
this. Well, I mean, if
money
the
and
audience
sequels.
watching this are more likely to pick up a game from me if it's tied to an IP they're fans of. That's something that's just been proven time and again. However much they say, we don't want stuff that's tied to a franchise. Yeah, you do. Look at your shelf, like you do, and that's
why
kind of
Solitaire
okay. And if that leads to
Conspiracy
cool
did
stuff,
so well. People love conspiracies.
they love.
There is something-
Solitaire.
And
There is
Solitaire.
something.
They love Solitaire.
It is funny how we bitch and moan about the lack of new ideas, and then
We play
even-
in the machine.
and then even as someone who is
Everything
so
on my
eager,
shelf is an IP, right?
I'll never forget. I was at a movie theater once, and they're rolling the trailers before it starts, and it was like black screen and then a little flash of static with like radio chatter of what sounds like chaos in a battlefield or something, and then out. So just a split second of, and then pause, silence, another thing, and then and it's just getting a little bit more, and then the static flicker started to go, and then it full on bum 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 bum, full on new Terminator movie coming, and I was like, fuck if that's not an effective trailer.
Someone watching this has to get the footage of that trailer and dub it with what you just did. I want guaranteed retweet if someone sends me that.
Mike Bithell retweet. Oh shit!
Mike Bithell retweet.
He doesn't just give those
My
away.
God.
I don't get those.
I devastatingly have to go. I have a meeting. This is our shortest.
Aren't you glad we got
episode
into demos?
ever? Yeah, I know. It always happens. I don't know why I even suggest topics anymore. To be fair, I wanted to talk about Hitman, but yeah, our shortest episode of all time, I think, because we had
Took
so
45
many
minutes to
problems
get
trying
going.
So many
make it
technical
work.
challenges.
Yeah, go play Hitman. That would be
All
great.
right.
Also,
Do you want to
So
introduce
good.
us before we leave?
yeah, that's what I figured I should do. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Play, Watch, Listen. I'm Alanah, video game writer. That's Troy Baker, video game actor. That's Mike Bithell, video game director. And that's Austin Wintory. Austin Wintory, video game composer. We will see you all. Austin?
Austin?
week.
Gets to choose
Austin.
his final form.
There he is.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.